Hello, welcome back to the podcast. My name's Jack Carson. I'm joined this week by
Max Palermo.
And welcome back to the Football Natter. So Max, it's another episode. Tell our beautiful listeners what we've got coming up on the show this week.
Well guys, we've got a Europe review covering the midweek's biggest games from both the Champions League and Europa League, followed by a Premier League preview of the weekend's biggest games.
So Max, where on earth do we start? Well, let's go to Tuesday in the Champions League, and well, one of the biggest results in terms of scoreline anyway was Bruges 0, Paris Saint-Germain 5. What do you make of that one?
PSG, they're incredible in group stage Europa League, Champions League, always are. And then they push on, they hit the semi-finals, and they fall off. But, 5-0, it makes your ears stand, it makes your ears prick up, and you're like, can they go on and actually do something this year? It was an Mbappe hat-trick as well, so if they have him hitting 3 goals a game throughout the whole campaign, you've got to argue with yourself whether they can actually go all the way this year.
Well, I was looking at a few kind of stats after the game and stuff, and Mbappe is actually the first substitute to score 3 goals in the Champions League game since Llorente for Villarreal in October 2008. So that's over 11 years ago. He's actually like the youngest player to score 15 goals in the Champions League, just 20 years old. So if this guy isn't going to win the Ballon d'Or one day, then I actually don't know who he will. This guy is like the next Messi. He is going to go on and push. He's already breaking records now at 20. He's going to get so much better. And, with him leading the line with players like Neymar and Cavani and Di Maria, PSG have got such great kind of squad depth and kind of quality in their squad. Do you think they can really go all the way this season?
I think they've got the quality to go all the way this year. If they can actually get to like Neymar again. And like I said, Mbappe is a god at football. I think they've got the quality, but I always come back to the fact that Paris Saint-Germain always seem to bottle it and never make it to the final, never make it past the semis. So I always hedge my bets and go with no, I don't think they're going to make it this year.
Well, yeah, I kind of look at PSG every season. I think, is winning the Champions League really their priority? Because, for what they invest, for how much the Qatari owners put in, I do sometimes look at them and think, well, are they actually more worried about creating a brand image like they have with Nike, Air and Jordan? And
the Jordan.
Are they more interested in creating a brand with kind of Jordan and getting the club out there kind of internationally, or are they actually trying to win trophies? Because for me, as a football club, I'd rather go and win the Champions League, because I think that's going to give you more coverage globally than, doing a deal with Jordan, because, doing a deal with Jordan doesn't get you, to the final of the Champions League. And while they may be trying to invest in players that will do that, and there's certainly, Mbappe costs nearly 200 million at the end of the day with add-ons and stuff. So investing in that kind of player can get you so far. But you do kind of look throughout the squad, and yeah, they might have a great attacking lineup, but is Idrissa Gana Gueye in midfield really going to win you the Champions League over someone like Fabinho for Liverpool? Such a key part of that midfield. Is Thiago Silva, who's only getting older, is he? It's kind of like they don't seem to invest in all the right areas of their squad, which is why I think that they probably haven't gone that extra mile in the Champions League and actually gone all the way.
I think you look at their marquee signings, it's always an attacking player. The last marquee signing they made in defence was, Thiago Silva's worlds above David Luiz, but David Luiz is probably the last defender they spent huge amounts of money on, and they even sold him for a profit. So I always like, they need to get they sign all these world-class attackers, sign some world-class defenders. Go out there and go and sign Varane. He's a French player. Real Madrid aren't doing great. Bring him into the Paris Saint-Germain. I think they'd be worlds better with some better defenders in there.
I think you're 100% right. And, they had Buffon at the club last season, Again, it links back to that brand. Buffon as a goalkeeper is this massive, great world figure for goalkeeping. So was going for a move for a 39-year-old goalkeeper really more about bringing the brand of Buffon to PSG rather than actually don't get me wrong, he's a good goalkeeper, but when you kind of go and look for players, surely you want a goalkeeper who's a little bit younger that's you're going to have for a few more years. A player like De Gea surely would have been a better player to invest in than maybe Buffon. And I know Manchester United would have been tough to get De Gea from, sign a new contract just earlier this season, but I do think if you really want to go all the way, you've got to have that quality. You've got to have that spine. And for me, PSG are probably a bit too top heavy sometimes?
I think they're definitely too top heavy. I really rate the signing of Keylor Navas. I think that's a brilliant signing to bring him into the team. But last game they're starting Choupo-Moting up front. He
used to play for Stoke.
Yeah, he somehow got a move to PSG after doing absolutely nothing at Stoke, and now he's starting Champions League games. And Di Maria is a good player, but again he's getting older. Icardi again, forward signing. Did they need him? They've got good squad depth, but they've probably got good squad depth to the semi-finals. They don't have a player that can come on. I mean, yeah, you can bring Mbappe on against Club Brugge and he'll score 3 goals, but you can't make it to the final against Liverpool and whack on Choupo-Moting and go get us a winning goal. It just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. But do you know what? A club which are a little bit similar to PSG for me, which probably haven't won the Champions League as recently as what they probably should have done, that's Bayern Munich. Now, for me, they have got a very strong spine, but again, it's that question of depth. So, obviously, they won 3-2 against Olympiacos. It was a little bit shaky at times against the Greek side, but, that man up front, Lewandowski, 36 goals in 2019 alone. In terms of this season, he's got 18 goals in 13 games. I mean, there is not a better striker than Lewandowski in the world right now. So, if Mbappe isn't going to take PSG to the Champions League final, surely Lewandowski might do.
I think Bayern are really... I mean, they shouldn't be, because everyone should think about Bayern every time it comes to a Champions League game. But Bayern are a dark horse for me this year in the Champions League. And Lewandowski, again, no one talks about him. No one talks about Lewandowski as much as they used to. He's just scored 2 goals away in the Champions League. And Olympiacos isn't a very easy place to go. They've got pretty passionate fans, so the atmosphere is very much against you. You can just go and bang in 2. I think he's an incredible striker. And I think any team in the world would have him.
That's the thing, the story. This story always seems to come out every single time Lewandowski seems to score a goal. Oh, Lewandowski almost joined Blackburn, But at the end of the day, don't worry about Lewandowski almost joining Blackburn. Worry about how on earth a team can cope with actually defending against him. Because I'm not gonna lie, if you put Lewandowski up against the defence of Liverpool, that Champions League winning Liverpool side, I don't think that they could. That Van Dijk, who's up for the Ballon d'Or this year, arguably the best player, let alone defender in the world. Can Lewandowski actually? I'm not gonna lie. Lewandowski would probably have Virgil van Dijk in his back pocket.
I think Bayern's a team that could worry a team like Liverpool when you've got Gnabry and Coutinho running at you, and Lewandowski who can finish from anywhere he wants and just sit in the box if he wants to, tap something in, or just go up for a header that's like 10 foot in the air. He literally does everything on the football pitch that he needs to. I seriously think he could give some teams trouble down the line as we go into the knockout stages.
100%, and well, they are only literally like a win off the knockout stages. We all know they've basically qualified, and it looks like they're going to win their group as well. I don't think Tottenham are going to catch them after Bayern actually demolished them 7-2 at the new White Hart Lane. What an embarrassment! What an embarrassment that was. But tell you what, an embarrassing scoreline for a team which has come into the Champions League this season. Atlanta, Manchester City beating them 5-1 at the Etihad, and Pep Guardiola held him. I think we're all going to hail him as well. Raheem Sterling, what a talent!
Raheem Sterling's the best player in the Premier League for me. Maybe De Bruyne beats him, but De Bruyne's injured a lot more than Sterling is, and that's saying something. And I seriously think one day he could push for a Ballon d'Or. I want him in the final 3 this year for the Ballon d'Or. You look at him, like when Pep Guardiola came in, and the changes he made, everyone thought Sterling's going to fall out of favour. He doesn't suit Guardiola's play style. And he's come in and he's had 100 goal involvements in less than 150 games or something ridiculous. The guy can do anything he wants and get away with it on the football pitch. He'll make someone look like a clown, or he'll whip a ball in from 40 yards out. The guy's incredible.
He's got like the finishing ability of Lewandowski combined with a little bit like the passing ability of De Bruyne.
Yeah,
he's just special, and for him to be English as well, it's so nice to see an English player do that well. And going into the Euros at the end of this season, we're going to need a Raheem Sterling on top form to try and take us all the way. And I think him and maybe Kane could really, if Kane actually gets his act together and starts scoring goals consistently, I think England really could be, some trouble for some teams at Euro 2020.
The fact he does it on international level as well, it is very impressive for me. I think he's such a great talent. And if you go to Southgate and you're trying to figure out a formation or where to play Raheem Sterling, you ask him, where do you want to play? That's what you need to do. He's the best player on the England squad. I think Kane's an incredible player. He's a good captain. But Sterling's the best player in the England squad.
I think you're probably right there. And you know what is even more exciting? I've got a massive smile on my face saying this, but the fact that at the Euros we could have a front three of Sterling, Kane, and Sancho. Oh my God! If we don't score, if we're not top scorers at the tournament, that is a failure of I don't want to say failure of Gareth Southgate, because I think he's actually a good manager for England, but it would be really. It would be unusual if Gareth Southgate doesn't find a way to get those 3 scoring goals.
I think we're blessed with that front three, to be honest with you. I mean, you saw it in Sancho's debut, how he performed on his debut, assists, goals, Sterling on the left-hand side. Kane's good for a goal from anywhere. I mean, I think he's probably the best finisher in the world. Probably goes toe-to-toe with Lewandowski in finishing. I think Lewandowski's probably the better striker, but as a finisher in front of goal, Kane knows where the goal is. You saw this season, he scored while falling over. People can say it's a fluke, but he still makes contact with that ball. It's incredible.
And, well, let's move on to one special moment for one special player, and that is Lionel Messi becoming the first player to score in 15 consecutive Champions Leagues. He put Barcelona ahead just 3 minutes in, and, I'm not going to lie, Slavia Prague did well to only lose 2-1 in that game, because Barcelona, I predicted Barcelona to win the Champions League last season, and if it wasn't for that freak of a Liverpool game,
oh, what a game!
Where Divock Origi put it in, if it wasn't for that, then I'm sure that they would have gone on to win it. They definitely would have been beaten Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh yeah.
So bar a freak, I'm not going to lie, my prediction was nearly there. But do you think Barcelona? We've spoken about teams having kind of the depth in their squad and Manchester City having the quality, but do you think Barcelona overall as a team have the best chance of winning the Champions League this season?
I want to say no, because I'm fed up of Barcelona winning stuff, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But maybe. They've got such incredible depth. Bringing Vidal off the bench, Rakitic off the bench.
And, you've got Dembele. You've got Griezmann starting. Do you start Griezmann? Do you start Dembele? You've got Suarez still, who, he's probably coming up to his last couple of good seasons as a good player. They're good enough for Barcelona. But, that goal against Inter where he kind of took out 2 players with one chop of the ball and just slipped it past Handanovic like he wasn't even in the goal. That player still got quality, and there's talk, the talk of Neymar going back to Barcelona. Do they really need him?
I'd say maybe. If you ship out Suarez end of this season and you bring in Neymar, you can play Griezmann up front, you could play Messi up front. I think you'd be sport for choice there. So I think Neymar's will improve that side. Regardless, I think it'll be a better environment for him to be playing in. So I'd say, yeah, go out and get him. Give them Ousmane Dembele and some money, I think that's what you need to do. Because Barcelona need to... Messi's... People forget Messi's in almost his mid-30s now. He's not going to be there forever. They need to start looking to the future.
To be fair, yeah, I do think Messi... I think what you'll see over the next couple of seasons, you'll see Messi slightly move a little bit more in field. I think he'll probably play the role that maybe Iniesta did in his last couple of seasons at Barcelona, where, it wasn't the Iniesta that constantly got back and forward, but it was the kind of Iniesta that made a late run into the box, kind of scored a bit like what Frank Lampard used to do at Chelsea, where he kind of sit on the edge, make a late run and find the space. Because Messi's, he is the world's best player for me at the minute, but he, even as he gets older and has to change the way he plays, I still think whatever position he plays, whether it be straight up front, out wide, or kind of attacking midfield, he's gonna completely probably be the best in the world in that position, because the man has the quality which I don't think anybody really can rival. But I tell you what, a team which is actually surprising me this season, and considering they've had a transfer ban, and that's Chelsea. What a job Frank Lampard's doing there. What do you make of their start to their Champions League campaign?
I think Chelsea have been incredible this season, concerning that the only player they brought in was Kovacic, and they got around that because he was a loan with an option to buy. I think they've been amazing. I think Frank Lampard's worked an absolute miracle to get them where they are in the league and the Champions League. I think they sit second in the group, beneath Valencia, I believe. And they went and beat Ajax, who I think are the best team in that group. So I think Chelsea are playing incredibly. I think Frank Lampard's got them playing for a reason, and they actually believe in him. Beating Ajax, like I said, and then Lille and Valencia drawing. Results have really gone in their favour this midweek. I think they can really push on and possibly even make a dent and knock out some teams in the knockout stages.
Well, when you kind of look at Chelsea's squad on paper, you look at Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, while they're good players, in the Premier League, solid players in the Premier League, and deservedly there, considering their seasons last year, Frank Lampard's got them playing to a Champions League level, which is almost unheard of. Tammy Abraham was on loan at Villa last season, one of the best scorers in the Championship season. Same with Mason Mount, helping Frank Lampard to the playoff final. But, you look at them now and they really are a threat. And Ajax are a team with such a kind of pedigree of Champions League kind of history. And, they almost got all the way last year. And, while I think because they've got rid of De Ligt and De Jong, I still think they're going to struggle this year. But, they are not a team just to be put down. And, I thought they gave Chelsea a really good game. But, it's Frank Lampard's sixth win in succession in all competitions now. And, considering they had a little bit of a rocky start in the Premier League, they do not look like a team which is going to be put down easily. And I think that's, like you say, a credit to Frank Lampard. This is a man who knows Chelsea inside out, knows what it means to play for the club. It's not like Sarri who comes in and, he's got no knowledge really of English football in terms of a culture and kind of Chelsea as a club. So he tries to put his style on it, which is fair enough. A manager's allowed to do that, but you've got to go about it in a way which, you've got to appeal to the fans. And I just think a few Chelsea fans fell out of love with the team last season.
Yeah,
because of Sarri. So Frank Lampard, coming in and reinvigorating those fans and playing the way that Chelsea know that they want to play. You've seen it at all kinds of clubs, and I think you're gonna have players like Gerrard probably go back to Liverpool at some point. Klopp said that he can see Gerrard as his successor. So this kind of former players going back to clubs to kind of play the style that that club's famous for. I think it's helping them, and it's certainly proving to be a good thing for Chelsea at the minute.
The most impressive thing for me, you mentioned Tammy Abraham playing for Villa last year and having a good season in the Premier League, in the Championship. Sorry, the year before that he was playing for Swansea and struggling to score goals in the Premier League. And everyone was like, yeah, well, Tammy Abraham, good season in the Championship. Let's just calm down. It's Premier League football now. And he's come in and he's been incredible for Chelsea. Mason Mount going from Championship to Premier League football, been incredible. And I think it genuinely comes down to Frank Lampard giving them a reason to play and invigorating the squad. I don't think that team would play with as much heart as it does without Frank Lampard there. And I think that's the reason it performs so well. It's because of the determination it has. Look at United. Half of the United squad look like it don't want to be there. But Chelsea, they're out there. They want to fight and win for the club, for the fans, and for Frank Lampard.
100%. And, well, we'll move on for the Champions League because we've talked about it for the last 15, 20 minutes. But a few kind of special mentions before we move on to the Europa League. And obviously, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back.
What a goal.
Coming back. I mean, screamer against Genk, but scoring 2 goals in that 4-1 win. A great return from injury for him. And, keeps playing like this. Definitely contender for England at the Euros. And Dries Mertens, who overtook Diego Maradona's record to become the second highest goal scorer in Napoli's history with a brace in Austria. And, of course, Napoli stay top of their group with that one. But moving on to the Europa League, and, well, a great night for English clubs, British clubs. You've got Wolves winning. You've got great results for Rangers, Arsenal, and of course Manchester United. Max, what did you make of the Europa League this Thursday?
I think Europa League gets a bad rap, especially as Premier League fans, because it's always joked about. You're not playing on Tuesday, Wednesday. You're playing on the Thursday. But for a club like Wolves and Burnley last season, to make it into the Europa League is such a big deal for these smaller clubs that aren't as big as, the teams that have to settle for Europa League. But it just proves to show that Europa League can be such a brilliant competition. You have Wolves winning 2-1, United winning 1-0, and also winning 3-2. And when English clubs are playing that well in Europe, I think it's good for the English game. And I think Europa League has some good football in it. And I think it should get a better rap than it does.
Everybody, when Wolves came up last season, everybody thought, they're a newly promoted side. You know, while they've got good players on paper, they're not really going to get Europa League. They're not really going to get that top 10 Premier League finish. But you know what? I was so happy to see them beating teams like Liverpool in the FA Cup, or beating the big teams on their day, making the teams. I think against all the top four, they either drew or won against them. They didn't lose
really
against
good.
teams.
Really good against the top four.
Nuno Espirito Santo, what a manager. This is a man who was a goalkeeper as a player, and the way he sets up his team. They know exactly what their roles are within that team. They've got the depth, whether it's Doherty at right wing back, whether you've got Adama Traore, whether it's Cutrone up front, or whether it's Raul or Diego Jota, who funnily enough got sent off
double book in 73 seconds. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, and they probably are going to miss him because he's one of their best players in the team. But they've got such depth. Either you've got Vallejo at centre back, you've got Saius who's suddenly moved there, you've got Ruben Neves. I could honestly go on, and I just think that this team isn't going to lie down if they get to the knockout stages. And I said this, I was speaking to a friend. I honestly think that they could go all the way to like the quarter semi-final if they really put their mind to it. And it's going to be a test to see whether they decide that sometimes it's going to get a bit congested with fixtures, and whether do they focus on that Premier League game or that FA Cup game, or do they go for Europa League? I'm not gonna lie, if they can get far in the Europa League, what an impression that's going to be on kind of the European stage for Wolves, and they are well and truly back kind of in the mix for European football now.
I think Wolves are a team that can afford to prioritise Europe. It's like when you're a mid-table side and you go, right, we're going to focus on the FA Cup. We want a good cup run. I think if Wolves perform decent in the Premier League and focus on the Europa League, I think they could go pretty far, pretty deep into the competition. And I think that's what they need. If they can get Champions League football, the amount of good that's going to do for the club. I mean, I come from 10 minutes down the road from Wolverhampton. I'm not a Wolves fan, I'm an Albion fan, so it's quite painful seeing them do all this. But, all of my mates, bar 3 growing up, were Wolves fans. And, you go into Wolverhampton City Centre and it's just happy. I hate it, but it's being really good for the club. And I've got to give respect to the owners, how they've pumped a lot of money into this club. There's no doubt about it. They have an agenda. They have Georgie Mendes involved, but they've kept a lot like the City owners in recent years, bringing back the old badge. They've kept the respect of the history of the club and what it means, and they haven't gone overboard. They haven't done a QPR and splashed some money and done awful. They've believed in the manager, and they've built a team that I think could actually, as much as I hate to say it, win the Europa League this year.
Well, do you know what? You're right. You look at this is a club which literally 5-6 years ago was in League One.
Oh, happy days. Yeah,
playing teams like Peterborough on the Saturday. But do you know what? The thing is, they've kept Doherty is the same player. That was in League One. He's been there at the club, and just like you said with the owners, there is a kind of a mutual respect for the club's traditions. Especially their work in the community, and I think the owners have only done better with that by investing in that, in that for the community.
In the city, there's a bunch of stuff that they've put in. There's a walkway, so they're in work with the university. It's great for this. It's great for the economy. It's great for the local people. It's great for British football in general. As much as Albion and Villa don't like it, you have to tip your hat at what they're doing.
100%, and they announced at the end of last season plans to completely revamp the stadium as well. And you just look at them and you think, this club is not going to lie down. This club wants to go places. They've got the financial backing to go places, and they're not going to be the team that, like you say, like QPR, are going to splash money on a few players and kind of realise the consequences a few seasons later. This is a club which is going to stably and financially build the club back to a top club in English football. And with teams that you see like Arsenal kind of struggling to make those places, it wouldn't surprise me if you saw a team like Wolves or even Leicester, what season they're having. It wouldn't surprise me to see a team like that kind of take their place. And it's probably been needed. It's almost been the same top 6 every season since the Premier League really started. So it'll be nice to actually see a couple new teams actually challenge for those top clubs in England.
Yeah, I think it's important for Wolves to become what Everton should have been. I mean, everyone looked at Everton a couple of years back as the team that can push for top 6, push for top 4 even, and knock one of the teams out, especially as United and Arsenal fell off. But it just never came to fruition. I think it's Leicester. I think Leicester have done it. I think Leicester are getting European football, whatever, this season. And I think Wolves, I think they need to plug some holes in January. But I think moving on for the next few seasons, they could actually do some really big damage at the top of the division.
100%. And, well, we talked about Manchester United slipping away, but they did manage to actually win a game. It's their first away win since March.
Yeah, PSG, wasn't it? First away win since the PSG game.
Exactly. And Martial scoring the goal. He's back from injury, and what a big player he's going to have to be for United. They changed formation. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made 8 changes, bringing in teenagers like Brandon Williams and James Garner. And, Williams actually, playing wing-back, he really was decisive in making that contribution to allow Martial to get that penalty. So, the United can ensure a spot in the knockout rounds if they beat Partizan at Old Trafford in November. But, for a team to only be like Manchester United, the size of the club, the players they've got, what is the problem with them? Is it Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or is it just the attitude from the players? Do the players really know what it's like to play for Manchester United? Do they really, we've seen players like David Beckham in the past, really know what it means to play for the club and will do everything for the club. Players like Roy Keane that want to put their body on the line, Vidic. For me, that culture at the club doesn't really exist since Alex Ferguson's gone. And I don't think it's the problem of Alex Ferguson going. I think it's the problem of the managers that have come before him not realising what it means to play for Manchester United.
I think there's better managers than Solskjaer, but I think what United needs is stability. And I think I'm going to contradict myself, but I think the stability starts by replacing Ed Woodward. And I mean, you can't do much about the owners, but I think if there was a change at the top, I think there'd be a trickle down effect, and United will start to push on as the team they should be. But it's just United's a lot different as to what it was. I mean, you look at it. I mean, we're not that old, but growing up, you could pencil United as a win for themselves every week. Maybe not for yourself, but I remember going to watch United at least once a season at the Hawthorns at the Albion ground. So I'd see him once a year, and you'd have Rooney coming in, you'd have Vidic, you'd have all these incredible players at the top of their game, and it'd be exciting. You knew you were going to get battered, you knew you were going to get absolutely rinsed, but you were going to see
a chance to see those players.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to see the 5-5, and they had Van Persie, who's an incredible talent. People forget how good Van Persie was. I won't sidetrack, but people do forget, and it was exciting. And then he leaves, Ferguson leaves, and then it's like you see United on the fixture list. You think, oh, could get a point there. It's just not how it should be. I look at the lineup now. This is Manchester United: Romero, Rojo, Maguire, Jones, Wan-Bissaka, Garner, McTominay, Williams, Natter, Lingard, Martial. Three of those players
doesn't scream Europa League winners, does it?
No, 3 of those players might get into a Ferguson side. 3 of them being Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, and Martial.
See, it's one of those difficult things because Manchester United aren't really defining themselves as anything at the minute. Because as a club, you either define yourself as a club with. For me, you either define yourself as a club with great players or a club which likes to bring players through. And, they're kind of all over the place at the minute because they've got a Martial who's out of form. They've got a Maguire who, until he actually went to United, was a defender at the top of his game, really. And, since he's left, funny enough, he just hasn't looked like the defender he was. So I don't know what's gone wrong with him, but I think the whole negative maybe a kind of effect around the clubs may be affecting him. But Paul Jones isn't a defender that should be playing for Manchester United. Chris Smalling got loaned out. What happened to
I believe Phil Jones's loan deal, I think it fell through. I believe.
That's the thing. Even if he'd gone, who on earth are they bringing to replace him? Because you're not going to want Marcus Rojo playing next to Maguire all season here.
God,
it's like, it's great to see that they have got players like James Garner coming in because, it's nice to see younger players. And, same with Angel Gomez. But I'm not going to lie, Angel Gomez isn't ready for Manchester United. You look at Phil Foden at Manchester City. Phil Foden's a player that's ready for top-flight football.
He played the Champions League this week, didn't he?
Exactly.
Got an assist.
He came on. I mean, he got sent off, to be fair, in their game against Atlanta.
Yeah.
But, Guardiola said, actually, he should be paying him because he's playing exactly how he wants him to play. He's got the right attitude. And I just don't see that. You don't see players at Manchester United putting their body on the line anymore. And, I think it's just something's wrong and something drastic needs to change. Like you say, maybe if a change came from the top, people would actually go, oh, hang on. People that actually might start to take notice. But at the end of the day, for me, it's a controversial opinion, but with the Glazers as your owners, for me, they're only interested in the business of it. They're not interested.
Definitely.
Manchester United, no matter whether they come 10th in the Premier League or 5th or 4th in the Premier League, Manchester United have still got the same brand globally, and players and fans across the world, and America especially, are going to buy shirts and buy merchandise because of the name Manchester United, because of their history. So, for me, it's right at the top. It's right with the Glazers. They need an owner which is going to put money into the club. They need an owner which knows and can respect the history and culture of the club, and actually, an owner which has a direct relation to the manager, so they can work together to actually get Manchester United back on track. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a good manager for Manchester United. Like we've just talked about Frank Lampard, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's played in those glory Ferguson years. He knows exactly how a Manchester United team should play. I just don't think he's been backed with the players or the resources to do that.
No, I think it takes money to win in football a lot of the time, minus Leicester. United just need to throw money at this problem, but do it wisely. And they can do that by selling. I think if they sell Pogba and sell Sanchez, they could bring in, that's at least 100 and... Well, Pogba could go for 150 million himself. So you're looking at £200 million possibly to spend that you've brought in without having to put any extra money in the club.
I think Pogba is a dangerous kind of... He's bringing kind of a dangerous toxicity to the club for me, While it was a great thing when he came back, he doesn't look at all like the player that was steaming
he's a World
in the
Cup
Serie
winner.
A at Juventus.
You see him in the World Cup, incredible.
Exactly.
You see him at Juventus, incredible. And I think when they sell him on, he'll be incredible again. I just don't think he wants to be there. And
he doesn't look like it, does he?
No, people forget how much of how much of an impact the mental side of the game has. And if Pogba doesn't want to be there, he ain't going to turn up.
Exactly. Well, this is a player who, if he'd had the right attitude, could be Manchester United captain.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
To be the captain of that great club, Harry Maguire was captain in midweek, and I think, even though he's not necessarily in the best of form, I'd rather have Harry Maguire as my captain than than Paul Pogba, who actually came up through the Manchester United ranks and technically should be at the top of his game. He's coming into 26 years of age. This guy should be hitting top form, and while he's still at Manchester United, he's not going to get there. And actually, all he's doing for me at the minute is dragging the team down. But moving on from the Europa League, just a quick few mentions from Thursday's game. Sevilla preserving their 100% record with a 3-0 win over Dudelange. I don't know, somebody out there can tell me how to pronounce that. And of course, Arsenal came from 2-1 down late on with 2 late goals from Nicolas Pepe, 2 great free kicks to win 3-2 over Portuguese side Vitória. Funny enough, in that game, Marcus Edwards, the former Tottenham player, actually scored at the Emirates. And
what a legend. Absolute scenes.
And sliding in front of all the Arsenal fans, it reminded me a little bit like Adebayor at Manchester City. But moving on, and we're going to end the episode with a quick look at the Premier League games of this weekend. And coming up, we've got quite a few interesting games, certainly for the Premier League. One of the first games of the weekend happening tonight, this Friday, is Southampton-Leicester. Now, a team, Ralph Hasenhüttl, for me, is a great manager, and I do honestly think with a couple of good players and some good investment, Southampton could actually challenge for European football and certainly top 10 in the Premier League. They're looking like they're going to have to survive another relegation battle, but I do think Ralph Hasenhüttl is the right man for that. But Leicester, what a start Leicester have had. They are looking like a top 4 side in the Premier League at the minute. Jamie Vardy, 31, 32 years of age, still as quick as ever, still as prolific as ever. You've got James Maddison. What a side Brendan Rodgers has got at Leicester, and I think they're going to take the challenge to the top 4 all the way this season.
I think Leicester are an incredible side. They're a fun side to watch as well. They play some really good football. There were a few eyebrows raised when they appointed Brendan Rodgers, but he's proved everyone wrong. I mean, I'll admit I was one of the ones that thought, oh, is it as ambitious as they could be? Because everyone saw the potential in Leicester because they won the league and kicked on. You know, they used the money they made, and the owners, well, sadly, it's the father, wasn't it, who owned it? He passed away, and now it's his son as the chairman. They put more money into it, and then they had more money from advertising and everything, and they've kicked on and kicked on. And then he was like, you saw Brendan Rodgers being appointed, you thought, okay, maybe it doesn't match the ambition, but he's come in and made this side, I think, a top 4 side. I think it'll finish. I really hope they'll finish 4th, because I think James Maddison is such a great player, and I think he's still underrated. I really do. And Jamie Vardy, again, still underrated. Jamie Vardy's incredible. Jamie Vardy's a top 5 striker in the Premier League.
What's nice to see is, one player in particular, Harvey Barnes. He was on loan for half a season at West Brom last season, and was doing incredible. That well. They had to come and nick him back because this is a player who young player in the Leicester kind of youth team, kind of came up into the first team, and got a great opportunity to go on loan to the Championship like many Premier League players do, and he just impressed from the get-go, scoring absolute screamers. He was such a key part of West Brom's team. I'm not gonna lie, I think if he'd been at the Hawthorns all season, West Brom might well have gone up automatically.
Oh yeah, we lost Barnes in the January, and it was done from there. We weren't getting automatic, and we were going to struggle in the playoffs. He's that good of a player. He's seriously incredible, and
he's showing how key he is to Leicester as well.
Exactly.
Damari Gray's not even getting in the side sometimes because Harvey Barnes is completely kind of. His form this season is brilliant. What scoring screamers against teams against Sheffield United. I mean, an important part of the game to get a goal like he did at Bramall Lane, to absolutely smashed it into the net. He's going to be key for Leicester this season if they are to get top 4. So, what's your prediction for that one? For me, I'm going to have to go 2-0 Leicester.
You're going 2-0 Leicester. I'm going 3-1 Leicester. I think they'll concede a goal. I think Southampton have got some quality, going forward. I think they're good for a goal. Be a threat. Yeah, and just like you said about Southampton being the European side in the future years, I think if they were to sack their manager, that would be the worst decision they could make. Because I think they should sit the season out, deal with the fact they've got to survive, and then
it's a difficult one for them at the minute because they've just survived a relegation battle last season. Because of that, they don't have necessarily the greatest funds available to try and bring in some quality players. I thought getting Danny Ings on a permanent was probably a decent sign for them. Let's not forget how good he was at Burnley, which is why he got a move to Liverpool initially in that Premier League season. So this is a player who, once he gets on form, is going to be a great player. And James Ward-Prowse, I think he's
baller. Great player.
Hasenhüttl has done, honestly, for me, turned him into like a lower league Frank Lampard, sitting on the edge of the box, the ball coming to him and him just taking a touch and curling it. James Ward-Prowse was the captain of the England under-21 side when he was that age. I think for him not to have burst into the England squad yet is a little bit disappointing. But I think getting on into the season, I think he's really gonna improve and actually impress Gareth Southgate. And he's probably on his watch list for the Euros. But moving on, we'll go on to Manchester City versus Aston Villa. Surely this only looks like a win for Manchester City. I'm going to go out there and predict it again, 5-1.
5-1 City?
5-1 City.
5-1 City. Oof. Yeah, I've got a City win. I'll go 4-1, I think. I think 5, I think they'll hit the brakes a little bit. They'll hit 4, maybe 3, and they'll sort of slow down. But again, Villa look alright going forward. They've got McGinn.
Wesley's made quite a good impact as a striker.
See if he can kick on from that. Sorry, it's painful having to talk about Villa and Wolves. Being an Albion fan. Get through it.
Brighton versus Everton. And I tell you what, Brighton have shocked me this season. I had them down as a relegation candidate. I didn't think Potter was really going to do that well to keep them up. I didn't think the signings of like Webster was really the kind of centre-back that would be able to partner Dunk and really kind of keep them up. But I've been happily surprised against Everton, the team which has been the most disappointing side this season, signing great players like Moise Keane, Richarlison, they've still Sigurdsson. This is a team which, like you said, should be going for top 6 to even top 4. You look at Leicester's side, Everton a similar quality on paper, but look at the difference in the leagues. Is it necessarily a question of manager? Marco Silva doesn't really seem to be able to hold a job down more than 2 years. Hull left at the end of the season, then went to Watford, left to go to Everton. He's not done anything really there. I can honestly see him getting sacked again.
I can see maybe sacked or leaving at the end of the year for the sake of the team. I think the Everton owners are quite smart, to be fair. I mean, the Sam Allardyce appointment wasn't the best move. So, 15th in the table, they should be higher than that. Look at the teams above them. Villa, newly promoted. Sheffield, newly promoted. Burnley sit above them. Bournemouth sit above them. Palace in 6th. Everton should be pressing for Europa League, minimum, in my opinion.
100%.
Sigurdsson's one of the best midfielders in the league. Richarlison's one of the best young players in the Premier League. Moise Keane's one of the best young players in the world. If you look at his stats last year with Juventus, something's wrong. I think you are right. I think it might be Marco Silva. I just think he doesn't have what it takes to push a team to that end goal. That end goal being European football for Everton.
So, for this, it's tough to predict this one. Albion have been quite good at the Amex Stadium so far this season. Everton, again, they're down there struggling. I think probably a 1-1 draw for me in this one.
I'll go 2-1 Brighton. I think Brighton will nick it at home.
Do you know what? Connolly, the young winger, he's actually impressed me for Brighton so far this season. I think he's made quite a good impact, and Potter certainly seems impressed by him.
Yeah, they've got Mopay as well. Mopay's, I think he made that move from the Championship to the Premier League, coming from Brentford. I think they've got quality going forward, and like you said, defensively they're still pretty sound at the back. And they have been, they've had Dunk since they've come up, and they're partnering him up. I think 2-1 Brighton. I think they'll nick it at home.
Fair scoreline. Watford, Bournemouth. I'm not going to lie. Don't really have much to say about this one other than Bournemouth, I think, would be disappointed if they didn't win this game. Watford, obviously, bottom. They do, compared to what they were last season. I mean, I know Troy Deeney's injured, but, that man not playing in your team doesn't mean that you can't win again,
You've still got Gray. You brought in Gray for 20 million.
That's probably a disappointing thing because Andre Gray was, again, like Danny Ings was years ago. Gray was a fantastic striker for Burnley when he was there, and he left, and just hasn't looked like he just hasn't looked consistent, and that's the most disappointing thing probably for Watford fans, that they brought in this player which was consistently scoring for a team around their level at that time. You're looking, you think, he'll do that as a minimum, and then as the season goes on, as the years go on, he'll get better, more consistent. We're going to have a real good striker here. That at the end of the day, when you buy a player, that's a long-term investment for your club. So they've probably been disappointed by Gray, but I think Callum Wilson at Bournemouth, Josh King, Brooks, they just considering they've got probably a weaker team for me than they had last season. I think Bournemouth will be disappointed if they don't win this game. I'm going to say 3-1 at Vicarage Road.
I'm going to go 2-0 Bournemouth on this one, I think. Maybe 1-0. Because I think Watford being at home, I think Watford are coming into this fresh, and I think they might give something for their fans, and I think Bournemouth might have to just absorb a lot of pressure in this game. But I'm still not doubting a Bournemouth win, because I think Watford are an absolute shambles. And I think Bournemouth have got really good quality going forward, and they're always going to score a goal. So I'll go 2-0 Bournemouth, but I think if it's a 1-0, I won't be surprised.
Okay, and West Ham United, Sheffield United. Sheffield United obviously getting a massive win against Arsenal last Monday. I mean, wow.
They played some good football. They played some really good football. It's like Wolves last year. They'll counter-attack you, and they'll make it look good. They'll make it look really good.
People underestimate how good Chris Wilder is. This is the manager which, since he took them over in League One, has played exactly the same formation. He's literally got exactly the same players. He's still got Basham and O'Connell, and obviously Billy Sharp and Ender Stevens. This is a manager that knows how to play with a certain formation. The players exactly know what the manager wants. He's tough talking. When Dean Henderson made that mistake, he wasn't coming out in support of him. He was saying, Dean should do better than that. That is a poor mistake. And while behind the scenes he may be a little bit more supportive, at the end of the day, he says what he thinks, and that's probably one of the best, features for a manager that you should have. At the end of the day, when you talk to the press, you shouldn't be lying to the press about it's a bad result, we could have done better. At the end of the day, what the press want to hear is that you are really a man of honesty, and actually, I think that probably reflects in his team as well. Chris Wilder isn't afraid to say what he thinks, and his team will get exactly the same treatment as the media gets from him.
I think it works. Like we said about Lampard, the team plays for Lampard. Sheffield play for Chris Wilder, and that's why it works so well. I mean, you would have saw them in League One. Could you see the potential when you saw them?
Do you know what? When we played them in League One and they beat us in the last few seconds of the game, I'm not gonna lie. While it was a little bit open first 20, after that they were in complete control. Complete control. We couldn't. Honestly, it was the first time I'd seen a massive 6'4" built centre back absolutely leg it and outpace our winger. O'Connell literally ran from the edge of his box to the edge of our box and crossed it in. And I'm sat there thinking, hang on a minute, this bloke's a centre back. How on earth is this guy letting it? But the fact is, even when he lost the ball high up the pitch, immediately they had cover there and they were back to that back three, even though O'Connell was technically playing left wing back at that point. It's the way they set up was amazing, and I could only admire them. And Billy Sharp scored the late winner, and you know what? I just looked at that and thought, I'd seen Sheffield United seasons before Chris Wilder, and for a club of that size, they should have always been going for promotion. But when Chris Wilder came in, something was just different, and they completely deserved promotion that season and subsequent promotion since. For me, they're a little bit like Bournemouth. Nobody expected them to get up this quickly.
Yeah.
Nobody expected them to go back to the Premier League 2 seasons after being in the Championship. But you know what? Considering you look at their players on paper to teams around them, they shouldn't have got promotion. But do you know what?
No,
they're not here to just sit around in the Premier League. They're going for it. They're currently sitting 9th, playing 9 games, winning 3, drawing 3 and losing just 3. That is an incredible start for a newly promoted side. And you know what? If they get relegated, I'd be surprised.
I think Sheffield's it's as just a pure footballing fan, it's incredible to watch. They'll sit back, they'll absorb whatever you throw at them. If anyone watched the Arsenal game, you'll see that they were fine just smacking it up the pitch every other attempt Arsenal had. But they're also capable of playing out from the back. And it's not just their wing backs that run forward and press. Like you said, you have their centre backs. I mean, it's
dangerous. If you let Sheffield United play out from the back, you're in trouble, because their patterns of play are incredible. And you know what? 1 second you think you're watching Basham, you turn your back and suddenly he's in your box and he's about to head it in. Do not, what my advice to any football manager out there is, do not let Sheffield United play out from the back. If you're going to play against Sheffield United, for me, you've got to really play that high press to force them into making mistakes, and you're probably restricting the way they can play. But if you let them freely play out from the back, you've got a problem on your hands. I
think Moussa scored as well on Monday night. So hopefully for them, he can even kick on even more. So I think I'd expect a slump from Sheffield as the season goes on, because it's going to be hard to keep this up with this squad. The squad isn't the best, but like we said, it plays for Chris Wilder. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they sort of slump and start taking some bad results. But I think with Wilder there, they'll have the character to push through it and still maybe even finish mid-table, which feels incredible, insane to say. If they manage to stay up, that will honestly be the best gift that any Sheffield United fan could get. And what a man in Chris Wilder, the man born and bred in the city, the man, the club he supports. For him to do that is just incredible. So for the last 5 games, we'll do a little bit of quick fire predictions. So I'll read out the game, I'll predict, and then Max predicts. So first we've got Burnley-Chelsea. I'm going to go 2-0 Chelsea. 3-0 Chelsea. Newcastle United versus Wolves, big game there in the northeast. I'm going to go 2-1 Wolves. I'll go 2-2. Arsenal Crystal Palace, a London derby. Can Zaha reignited form? Maybe can Pepe continue his fine goal scoring antics? I'm going to say 1-0 Arsenal. I'm going 2-1 Palace on this one. Biggest game of the weekend, Liverpool-Tottenham Hotspur. Both teams fresh from a win in the Champions League. Can they continue their form at Anfield? For me, it's a tough place to go for any team. Liverpool are going to win this 2-1. I've got 3-1 for this game. And Norwich City, Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said just yesterday that Manchester United are going to have to be at their best to beat Norwich City. Really? It's such a shame to hear that. I mean, come on. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you are the manager of Manchester United. Big your club up like it should be. For me,
I'm not going to lie. Daniel Farke, I like the manager. I'm going to go 1-1. A great result for Norwich.
I can see them nicking it. I can see them nicking it 1-0 here. I can see Pookie getting back on the score sheet. And
honestly, wouldn't surprise me. What a player Pookie is. And
incredible talent.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. We've covered, of course, the Champions League, Europa League, a little in-depth talk into Manchester United, and of course we've previewed the Premier League for this weekend. Make sure you catch us in the coming weeks for future episodes. Follow the Football Natter on Twitter at FootballNatter1. You can, of course, email thefootballnatter@gmail.com if you have any suggestions on topics you'd like us to talk about. But for now, it's goodbye from Max.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me. Goodbye.